This episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. There are some things in life that are okay to be a total crapshoot. Crapshoot is a crazy word. But there are some things that are okay to be a total crapshoot, like trying a new takeout place or impulsively buying something from the TikTok shop or trying a new milk in your coffee. But finding the right doctor should not be a crapshoot. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to book instantly. We're talking about in-network appointments with over 100,000 healthcare providers in every specialty. From mental health to dental health, from eye care to skincare, and so much more. So stop putting off your doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/X's to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/X's. And one more time, that's ZocDoc.com/X's. Okay, hi guys, welcome back to X's and O's, a podcast where we talk about queer relationships and sex. I'm your host, Shannon Beveridge. Every time I do this, I do a different intro, and my little voice thing just said that I'm running out of battery. So let's hope we make it through this whole entire intro. I'm just going to be so transparent with you guys, not that anyone cares, but I actually filmed this whole intro already, and I edited it, and I hate the way I look at it. I hated it. So I'm redoing it because I was feeling so self-conscious. I hate that feeling so much when you're just like, even though I feel like I'm being dramatic, I just was like, damn, I will not feel good about myself if I put this out like this. So I have to redo it, but redoing it also sucks because then I'm like, wait, what did I say the first time? Anyway, we're redoing it. It's a new day. I filmed it last night. I'm filming it again right now because I just can't, I don't know. It's just one of those things, one of those days, one of those times where you're just like feeling not that good about yourself, which is just so annoying when that happens. Because what is it? Why? What is the universe doing to me? Why do I feel that way? I don't even know. Anyway, I'm feeling better today. So I hope you enjoyed my intro round 2. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm so grateful that Devery took time out of her busy schedule while she was visiting LA to come be on my podcast of all things. That's so nuts. She is just so badass, and I think it's really obvious if you watch this episode that she's so cool, and I hope you guys will follow her on all of her stuff. As you can see, I am still not in a set, temporary vibe going on here. If you're watching, you can see that. If you're listening, you have no idea probably what's going on. But yeah, I'm still setting up my studio, and I'm so excited. This week I bought a bed for it. Like, the bed frame is here, it's in there, and it's something I've never seen before, ever in my life. I also have been finishing like the rest of my house as well. I'm still very much so moving right now. And if you are on my Patreon, then you saw like a house tour when it was pretty much empty. If you are still on my Patreon, I'm uploading a video of a more up-to-date look inside the house. So if you haven't seen either of those and you want to, you can go to patreon.com/nowthisisliving and you can see my house before everyone else gets to see it. But I am not going to show anyone the room yet, the podcast room. I showed it in the first house tour when it was empty, but I'm going to wait for like a major reveal. And I've been so grateful to Sarah Weichel for helping me fix the studio, fix everything. She's an amazing designer. She was my manager before. Now she's my designer because she stopped managing and now she's an interior decorator. So that's been so funny and nice to have like this full circle moment with her. And she's so talented. So it's going to look so good. It's going to look so good. And I can't wait to like actually start having people back in there because I'm sick of going into like this studio vibe that I have right now. It's so much more formal. I miss my bed. I miss being like face to face with someone talking, chilling. It's like a whole different energy, I feel like. But I still really love the episodes I've been filming. I already filmed an episode for next week. I also love that guest. I can't wait for you guys to see who it is. My mental health is good. I'm just really busy trying to get into this house and move in and get used to living alone. I've never lived alone in my whole entire life. In my whole life, I've never lived alone. I lived with my family, and then I went to college, and then I lived in a sorority house, and then I lived with more people, then I lived with more roommates, and now for the first time in 32 years, I'm living by myself. It is such an adjustment. I had the luxury of cat sitting Bear for the first like week that I was here, which was really nice because it actually like made it feel less lonely at first, and now I've kind of adjusted. I thought I was going to be like really scared like at night and stuff to fall asleep, but I actually haven't been scared at all. The only thing I've been feeling is bored sometimes. I'm like, where is my built-in friend / roommate, Zoe? She's not here. Where the hell is she? She is on tour, so even if I lived in my old place, she'd be gone. But it is like weird. I have made more phone calls in the last 10 days, 12 days, whatever, however long I've been here, than I probably have in my whole life. Like any long distance friend I have, they have been hearing from me. Family, hearing from me. Friends, well, that's not true, because I don't want anyone who's my friend or family to listen to this and be like, you didn't call me. But I have been on the phone a lot, mostly with Vanessa, honestly, because she's editing for me on my second Instagram account. That's for the X's and O's podcast. If you guys don't follow it, I'll put that in the link below, but it's just at X's and O's pod. But yeah, please follow it, because I'll be putting more content on there. This camera will not stay put here, so I keep moving it if you're watching. Anyway, if you're watching, please give this video a thumbs up. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or Amazon or wherever you listen to your podcast, give it 5 stars or any star you want. Whatever you actually believe, you can give it that. But I really appreciate it. It helps so much when you guys do that. Rate, like, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for your support. Sorry about my boring ass background right now. I can't wait to have everything done. It's going to be so cool. I'm so excited. Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to update y'all on. Mostly just the move is what I've been doing. Been moving. Next week I'm doing some fun stuff, some photo shoot stuff coming up. So yeah, some announcements coming up soon. I hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you follow Devery on everything. Check out her movie, Backspot, and everything else she's been working on. Reservation Dogs is an amazing show. Just was like nominated for Emmys. She's awesome, 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 awesome. I'm obsessed. And yeah, love you guys. Bye. Okay, hi guys, welcome back to X's and O's, a podcast where we talk about queer relationships and sex. And I'm so excited for my guest today. Like, I am nervous. My hands are shaking because I'm such a big fan of you.
Oh my God.
So I'm so glad that you're here. But she's an actor, she's a director, she's a writer, she's a producer. What don't you do?
Math.
Okay, perfect.
I can't math.
And a gymnast as well.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited that you're here today. We're going to talk all things acting and, intersectionality, hopefully.
Hell yeah.
Kay.
Thank you for having me. I'm also like, holy shit, it's you. I've seen like so many of your videos and listened to your podcast, and now I'm like, oh, we're not in your bed.
It's not the same. Like, nothing is the same. I know. I wish we were in the bed.
You know?
We could do it again.
It's like nice and AC'd though.
Oh my God, I know. It is really comfortable. But, okay, let's just jump into it. Well, I did want to tell you something. I can't decide if I want to start with it or but I think let's start with it. My friend is like a huge fan of yours, huge fan of Reservation Dogs. And, okay, I have to read this text to you. Because I texted her this morning and I was like, I'm having Devery Jacobs on my podcast. And then she said, no fucking way. And then she said, holy shit, my hands just went numb. That's so fucking cool, Shan. And then she said,
what?
I'm in shock. All I can think of right now is wanting her to know how much she and the whole cast have meant as representation for res kids today. And for us oldies who've been waiting for representation like theirs for years. The banter, humor, and lifestyle portrayed on the res in the show was perfect. It took my cousins and I back to when we were little, and the whole show was just so incredible.
Aww.
She is like obsessed with you.
That's so sweet.
And
that
I'm
is
obsessed with her.
Really sweet.
Yeah, and I like went to her res with her before, and so I'm like, this is crazy. Before the show came
Where's
out.
she from?
It's like Southern California.
Yeah.
What? I'm not Pachanga band.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. I haven't been there myself, but like, awesome.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
So cool. The world is so small.
It is.
Anyway, so let's go right into it. Like, how did you start acting?
Oh my God. I always knew that I wanted to be an actor. Like I just found some like home videos that I did of like filming scenes, and I like had drawn on piece of papers where it was like written by going out here to Devery Jacobs, like acting, like starring, and it was just like I was a ham, and it was something that I was always doing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I would ever be able to make a career out of it.
A whole ass career.
Yeah.
It's
like
wild.
That was not the path that I was supposed to be on, and I feel like I keep like diverting further and further from where I was like supposed to go, which was me working on my res as a social worker in Sigotjet Dagenhas Community Services in Kahnawake Mohawk Territory, living there with a man who has children. Like that was the path that was laid out for me, and thank God that's not where I'm at.
Not what happened. No, it's not what happened at all.
I realized I didn't even answer your question at all.
Okay, wait. What was your first like acting thing that you did?
So the first acting thing, like not professionally, was just community theater. I played a Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz.
Back to your height again.
Yeah, 5'2" over here. And then the first like professional thing I did, I was in a commercial for like, I don't know, this luggage company.
Cool. Where
it was like Christmas time and I had a Finding Nemo thing that I was like so happy. I was 10, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
So Finding Nemo makes more sense.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I was like way too happy to be receiving this Finding Nemo bag, and I was in like an entirely white family.
Oh, good.
So I'm like, oh, she was adopted.
I'm dead. Did your parents like know anything about the industry?
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like my mom is a florist. My dad was is a peacekeeper, which is like tribal police on my res. And that like there was no knowledge of that whatsoever. And so that's why I like started going to school for something else. I used to work at the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. I did want to go towards social work. Like that was something where I was like, if I can't act, then I want to be able to help Indigenous people. And but around that time, I was cast in the first leading role I'd ever done. It was a film called Rhymes for Young Ghouls. Cool. And that was like, actually like the first time, because my character's like identity and sexuality isn't ever explicitly stated, but for me, I knew she was queer. And it was like, I was very femme growing up and was really like subscribing to and performing the version of like Mohawk femininity that was really expected of me. And like putting on docks and baggy jeans and just like knowing how this character like sat, and there was just something in me that like really sparked for the first time. So that was my first like leading role and what really led me to pursue acting full time. And it was very apparent to me that I can't do anything else. And then looking back, it was also where like I started first figuring out my first like inklings of queerness and like where it sat in my body.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 19.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's so weird because having this podcast, obviously, like I talk to so many different people, and like I've in the past sometimes been like, oh my gosh, that was so late when someone's like, oh, I was 26. But now I'm like, there's no like right time to like actually start to register those feelings inside of yourself, especially because we have so little representation.
Yes.
I mean, finally, we're getting so much more, I feel like, but like it's been a slow road. And if you never saw yourself at all as that queer person, like how did you even know that it could be you?
And it's also like, I don't know, I think for me growing up on my res, like the only people who I saw who were out and queer were people who like couldn't morph themselves to be anything but like, and it was specifically a lot of gay men. And even though they weren't out, it was like everybody was able to tell because they were like more feminine. And so I didn't know any queer women or like sapphic folks or anything like that who were bi even, because it was just like, so how are you even supposed to realize those parts about yourself when it's like not an option or something you're not seeing it?
No, literally, I genuinely always say like I didn't know I could be a lesbian. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I knew gay guys existed.
Yeah.
But I think just because of the conversation that was happening. But yeah, I mean, I knew my PE coach and my volleyball coach were not hanging out with men. Like I definitely knew that, but I was like, but they're not me. Like the level of femininity was like very, I mean, obviously low. So it's like hard to see yourself if you only think that gay people look one way.
Totally.
But obviously now we know.
Now we know.
We're very eclectic out here.
And it was funny because I was just thinking before we started recording, we were like both mentioning how we're not touchy-feely people. And like, I do think that was part of my queerness because like I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. Oh, and
perfect.
I went with like a busload of girls from Ganawage from my res, and it was like we just kind of hung out with each other. And I remember being so, I guess like weirded out by all of the white girls because they were so physically affectionate. Where they would come up to each other and they would like hang off each other. It would be one day since they'd seen each other. They were like, oh my God, I love you. And they would like be all up in their like each other's hair and holding hands and all this stuff. And it made me so fucking nervous to do that. And it was like, I couldn't relax in somebody else's embrace and like Now I know why.
Totally same. Like, I feel like there was, even though when I didn't know yet, I just was like, I feel like they're going to know that I like that too much.
Yeah.
Like, I just like, there's something, it's similar to like the locker room feeling of being like, don't look around, don't look around, don't look around. And like the same thing in your body, like when someone's trying to be affectionate to me and like I haven't lost it. Like, there's very few women that I feel like safe being like touched by. Not safe is the wrong word, but like where I can actually relax. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, you're creeping me out. It's just kind of like, ugh, my body feels so tense. Like, I feel like, can you feel that I feel tense? Like, then that's all I'm thinking about. Like, I'm like, oh my God,
like,
her head's on my shoulder.
Am I like, okay,
literally,
and my palms are sweating.
Literally, I'm like,
knees
should I
weak, arms are
lean?
heavy.
No, and like my roommate, well, I just moved. That's why we're here.
Okay.
My temporary set. But my roommate, she's really affectionate, and only like in the last year, we lived together for 3.5 years, and only in like the last year did I finally start to like, when she would like lean on me on the couch, I'd be like, and this is okay. She knows you don't like her. She knows you don't like her. But it like takes time. I don't know. This episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. Being an adult has its high points, from getting to wear your pajamas all day if you want, or ordering what you want when you want from Amazon or Postmates or Uber Eats. Like, the options are limitless. So being an adult can be super fun. But one thing that is not fun is booking doctor's appointments. That is, until I learned about ZocDoc. ZocDoc is the healthcare app that makes being an adult that much easier. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. You can filter doctors by who takes your insurance, or where they are located, or who might be a good fit for the medical need that you have, and who are highly rated by verified patients. We're talking about in-network appointments with over 100,000 healthcare providers in every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and so much more. Plus, the doctor's appointments happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours after booking the appointment. And sometimes you can even get same-day appointments. I live for instant gratification. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/exes and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/exes. And one more time, ZocDoc.com/exes. Were the girls that you went to school with, do you feel like white girls were more affectionate than y'all?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, it was interesting. Like, I do like hugging people. Like, I'll hug my friends and whatnot. But that was something only after I moved to Toronto that I really learned that I'm like, oh, I love giving like my friends and people I love a good hug.
Yeah.
Snuggling on the couch is a whole other thing. That feels like way too vulnerable and intimate.
Scary.
But yeah, like in my community, we've also gone through like collectively a lot of trauma. And so there's really clear boundaries, and we're not necessarily like physically affectionate people, and my res is just outside of Montreal, and so it's like they'll do the double kiss because there's like the French influence, and I was so awkward always doing that. And then they're like, well, what do Mohawks do? And they're just head nod, just a little greet and keep a healthy distance between folks. But yeah, like that was the extent of my physical affection with like friends and whatnot. But it's so interesting because like I am a really physically affectionate person when I'm with somebody. And
same.
Yeah.
It's like I have it all built up or something. I'm like, I have a lot of love to give, and now you have to take all of it.
I know, that poor person. I feel like for me.
Oh, literally. I have my girlfriend right now. She's not super physical touchy.
Oh, it was so funny.
And she'll be like, I'll be like in the middle of the day trying to give her a hug, and she's like, I am doing something. And I'm like, what? She's like, what? There's no time for this right now. And I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, you're right. But
I've had a partner before be like, I love you and I love how affectionate you are, but sometimes I feel a little smothered because you don't even realize you're doing it, but you just snuggle right up into me. And I'm like, oh, I don't realize I'm doing that. Please shove me off.
Yeah, no, literally. I'm like, this is actually a good learning lesson for me. Like, it's the middle of the day. We have things to do. I don't need to have like a 10-minute hug right now, but I could. This is like totally a bad segue, but I'm so curious about it. And I've been thinking I wanted to ask you about it all day. Because I talked to my friend Carol, who I read my text to about it before, but like the concept of two-spirit, like, can we talk about that? Because I feel like it's so interesting, and like I know so little about it. But you played a character that you...
Yes.
embodied
I did
that,
play a
right?
character who is two-spirit. I think it's actually a newer term.
Okay.
And it's like, it was created in the 90s because in the Bay Area, they have like a two-spirit powwow, an indigiqueer powwow. And for us and like Native people generally, like back in the day, pre-colonization, a lot of our communities actually considered queer folks to be sacred and like closer to creator, or like more in touch with like all genders. And a lot of communities had multiple genders, third genders, fourth genders, fifth genders, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And like there's 500 different nations and tribes across North America. Like it's every community is different and has their own version of it. But to kind of encapsulate that form of queerness that is like so intrinsically entwined with somebody's like indigeneity is where the term two-spirit kind of came from. And so there'll be like actual linguistic terms, like there'll be an Anishinaabe Moan word for that. There'll be a word in the Dene language for like their specific version of queerness. But for like a shorthand, people now say two-spirit.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Just so that everyone can like understand that it's like the through line between them.
And like only Native folks can be two-spirit because it's like it really is entwined with like our identities as Indigenous people.
So it's not like synonymous with like transness or
So
like.
It could be. There are
got
two-spirit
it.
folks who are trans. There are two-spirit folks who are not. It's kind of like you know how like queer is an umbrella?
Yeah.
Where it can embody somebody who's trans, someone who's non-binary, somebody who is like, and talking about sexuality. Like it's just kind of like an umbrella term and can mean specific things for different people.
Cool.
That's kind of how two-spirit is, but like talking about like indigeneity at the same time.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is it like widely embraced by like everyone, or do some people like not fuck with that as like a concept?
I mean, I feel like I don't know why I was in the comments. I don't usually read comments, but there's just like trolls online who think because it was a term that was coined in the 90s that it makes it somehow less valid, even though it's just finding language to put on that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
people.
was wondering. I'm like, I wonder if, just because of the modernization of something that is older, like sometimes people will be like, no, we didn't get that right or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's just a newer term in English for something that is like millennia old as our communities are.
Totally. It's so tragic, the whole colonization and how that affected, like, it like just like Western culture, like literally taking queerness away from people who had already known it and embraced it. And like, obviously it must go hand in hand with like Christianity or Catholicism.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
My res is not anymore, but it was really Catholic because we've been around, like my res specifically, since the 1600s and was founded for Catholic Mohawks. And where to unpack? No, but basically we had to keep like our traditional ways going to Sesne underground because it was deemed illegal. Because, colonization, and this was up until like the 70s across the US and Canada. But a lot of people were really Catholic, and now we're kind of going back to like our traditional views and values and governance and all of it. And one of the ways is now like trying to figure out what our queer ancestors looked like. I think there's a lot of nations that I actually feel envious of because they have maintained that knowledge and that connection to having people who are two-spirit and having whatever like term that they have in their communities, like it's still alive and well, and that knowledge is still very much a part of their culture now. I don't have that privilege. It's kind of been lost, and so I'm trying to look and do some learning on what our queer ancestors went through and who they were and how they were viewed in the community, because it's been so many years of Catholicism.
Totally.
Like talking to my Dada, she was just like, oh, because I asked her like, well, what did we have a term for that? What was it like? And she was just like, I don't think we had queer people. I didn't see anybody growing up, which I'm sure she didn't because they were probably all in the closet.
Totally.
So,
yeah, it's crazy how that, like, just across all queer history, how little we have in general, but definitely we have way more white history in general as well. So we have way more white queer history than anything else, which is so sad. I listened to like a whole podcast on like lesbianism, and they were trying to like dig up like historical facts, and the two people who were doing the podcast kept having to apologize because they're like, this is like very white history. Like it's all that we have to give you. Like we tried, like this is not for lack of trying. It's literally just for like lack of information. And like so much queer history in general too, just like not preserved because of fear, and or like we're the roommates instead of, you know, like the real stories all got hidden. But we've been here the whole time.
Oh, the whole time.
God damn it. Anyway, is Catholicism still big in your community or not really?
It's not really. I think there's a lot of elders in the community who are still Catholic, but for the most part, people are now going back to like Ganosesne and our traditional views and ways.
What do you think has like helped people be able to do that? Like, do you think having like representation of real Indigenous people, like is there like any like people feeling like a lack of like connection to where they came from, and like
I mean, I think
or just deconstructing
I think there's a lot of deconstructing in I have a few different thoughts. In the U.S., there was like the AIM movement, the American Indian movement, which I think was a big resurgence in pride for Native folks, whereas before there was a lot of shame. In Canada, and specifically on my res, there was like the 1990 Oka crisis. And before then, there's like a cleared gap where before 1990, you would see people with all English first names. And then after 1990, you would see people with all Ganyat Geha first names. And so Devery is my middle name, but I've always been called by it too. But my first name is Galwanahirde. And yeah, I think for us, there's like this huge resurgence in pride for being who we are, because there was a 76-day standoff between Mohawks and the Canadian government because they wanted to build a golf course on a sacred burial ground because, you know, capitalism.
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, so it's there's definitely kind of triggering moments for different people. And now I think being able to share our cultures and like who we are with the masses, I feel like is now getting other people involved. Like I could have never imagined that I would be on a podcast with you, like, and you would have an understanding and have friends who are Native or have like, in my mind, that's wild because I grew up feeling like I was screaming into a void. Like I've always been involved in activism. And so it's wild when people like are actually watching Reservation Dogs or people know about what's going on or were standing with us with the Dakota Access Pipeline in fighting it. And so all of that is just like, whoa, people are actually paying attention now, which hasn't felt like the case for so long. I mean, there's still there's still a lot to
work to do,
be done, but I think there's a start happening.
I feel like, in general, it does feel like there are at least people who are listening and curious, which is like the beginning of change.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Okay. I personally have such a love-hate relationship with TikTok specifically because I feel like it is like a breeding ground for a lot of like hatred and just opinions, and maybe not all opinions are good opinions. I've had bad opinions myself, so I'm not judging. But something that I think is so cool about TikTok is like the barrier to entry, and that people can do like any kind of storytelling, and all stories are like, you don't need like some powerful white man in Hollywood to be signing off on you sharing your culture, your story. And I've seen that a lot with like Indigenous creators in general, like showing so much of their history. And it's so, I'm like, it's fascinating because I'm like, I never learned anything like this. Like,
they don't teach this shit in school.
At all. No, I mean, I don't even want to think about what was going on when I was in elementary school. Like when we would be like doing Thanksgiving stuff in America, I'm like, there are pictures that need to be burned and like, but just like history that we need to learn about. Like it's so cool though. Like I'm like genuinely like seeing, like learning about cuisines and stuff too. And I'm just like, and like beading, and I get very into it. Like I'm like, cool.
Oh, I mean, you're speaking my language. I've always known this shit is so cool, but now that people are like getting access into it, it's just like, we've been cool.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like that's like my friend Carol, that's her sentiment all the time too. But I'm like, yeah, we just never got to see. Like, I feel like I never got to see. But now it's so cool too with like shows like Reservation Dogs and so many other things that are coming out. Like, we're getting more authentic representation, which must be interesting for you because you're seeing that on both sides, I'm sure, as like a queer person and an Indigenous person.
Totally. I think what I'm finding right now is like, even though we're now getting the beginnings of representation, that I still get the feeling that execs and Hollywood doesn't know what to do with Native actors or creatives. Mm-hmm. Because the things that I'm being offered for, I'm like, I am a light-skinned Mohawk person. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to be someone who's cast to be in like pre-contact back in the day before Europeans came over. And I'm like, why are we also telling those stories anyway if it's not from our perspective? And also, what about modern day Native folks who are just doing their jobs or whatever they're doing? Like, that was part of the process with the film that I did, Backspot, which I've been a producer on for
6 years.
Yeah, in December will be 7 years.
Wow, that's wild.
I started working on it with the director D.W. Watterson, and like, yeah, part of bringing that to life was trying to get funding. We were told, well, we don't understand why the protagonist is Indigenous, and I'm like, because I was a gymnast, because I am a producer on this show, and so I think that there are definitely strides being taken in terms of like representation in Hollywood, but also there's so much more we got to do. And I would rather be seen as an actor who happens to be queer, who happens to be Ganyakahaga, and is very proud of it and will like always draw from my lived experience as a queer Mohawk person. And I'm also an actor who like wants to be able to play characters who have different lived experiences from me, like class differences or growing up in a different location or different professions, you know, like that's...
I mean, isn't that like the whole point of acting?
That's the whole point. Like, that's the whole point.
Let me be other people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's so true. Like, even like, obviously I can speak more to queerness. Like, I know more about queerness.
Yeah.
And so even just like the fact that, still today, we have queer people being played by not queer actors all the time. It's like, we're so slow to change. Like, that industry is slow to change.
Totally.
But people like you are obviously like helping move it along. Even, I'd like to talk about your movie, Backspot.
Yeah.
Because that was like, it's an indie film. And did it start as a short film?
It started as like a proof of concept to get people, because this was pre-Cheer, the Netflix show Cheer,
which
where
is
everybody,
crazy.
And so nobody knew what the hell we were talking about when we were talking about competitive cheer and all-star cheer. They were just like pom-poms. And so we were like, no, and we made the proof of concept to be like, no, it's a real sport with real stakes and real dangers in it as well.
Seriously.
Yeah, so that was in 2017 we made that piece, and I was like, I need to do this before my body fails me as a former gymnast, where my old ass gymnast knees start to go. And so I ended up doing all of my own stunts.
Yeah, I saw you say that. I'm like, that's insane.
It was, like, it's memorialized on film forever. I don't know if I ever need to do a backflip again.
Okay, but that's awesome. You can also like brag to everyone for the rest of your life that you did that.
Yeah.
But I guess like for context, the movie is about competitive cheer. You play a queer cheerleader, but the queer part of the storyline doesn't feel, it's just like, it's just there. It's not really like the point of the movie, which I feel like is so good. That's what we just need, more of that. And I do feel like we're getting more of that, just so we can see queer joy and also like queer breakups too. Like just like queerness that isn't, oh my God, I need to come out of the closet. And what am I going to do when I come out of the closet?
Totally. And like those movies are great. I can't name any off the top of my head because they all feel really traumatic. But like we've seen those stories before. And I think in doing this, the main idea I think that was most interesting to me and DW was unpacking the relationship between a queer athlete and a queer coach, and like what it means to be a femme queer person with the pressures of being an athlete, but also the added layers on top of it. Because I think there's so many, I don't know, so often queer cinema talks about like the romantic relationships between people, which
Totally.
of course exist, but we're also not just like token queer friends in a sea of like straight people.
Yeah.
We are in community with each other, and the film with Baxbow, we really wanted to unpack that relationship between Riley and Eileen, her coach, who Evan Rachel Wood plays, and kind of like explore some of those generational gaps, because there have been queer mentors in both mine and DW's life who are like want to help take us under their wing, but then are also like bitter over the sense that we're able to be so open and out, because DW's non-binary and queer, I'm queer, and like, yeah, so that was the initial kind of conversation. And then also finding mentorship in unexpected places, like with Devin. And so, yeah, we just wanted to explore what it's like to be in community with queer folks outside of just romantic ones. But there's also a romantic relationship in there, which is just like really lovely and is I think making Backspot healed a big part of myself, because if I had seen that movie growing up, I think I would have come into myself way fucking sooner.
Yeah, totally. That's how I felt. I felt that so much with that show Heartstoppers. I don't know why specifically. Like there was something about that I was like, oh my God, I think I would have literally been like, I am a lesbian in high school. I would have been like, I could do this. But no, I was going to say, I thought that was really interesting. Also, Evan Rachel Wood, that's so cool. Like,
I mean, come on.
That's
it was
so cool.
Unbelievable.
Also, like in my head, because I'm like, she will forever remind me of 13, which is just so like coming of age. Although that movie kind of like I can't really watch it anymore.
It's traumatic.
Like, it's like dark.
Yeah.
But
very
iconic. And also probably some of the first queerness.
Yeah.
Question mark. Was it? Who knows? But like seeing two girls kiss.
Yeah.
For the first time. One of the first times. But I picked up on that like relationship dynamic when I was rewatching the movie, because she says the thing to you about like that the world isn't going to be nice to you or whatever, and you have to be like, you have to be stronger. What did she say exactly? Sorry.
You need to be a brick shit house.
There you go.
Sorry, I've seen this movie way too many times.
No, but I'm like, I know I'm not doing it justice. But yeah, I do feel we're like of a more similar generation of queer people, and we're not necessarily like the youngest of the queer generation anymore. Like it's so funny to like think about. I hate to use the word bitter because I just feel like bad, because I'm like, oh my God, like older queer people did so much for us to get to hear.
Enormous respect.
Yeah.
Enormous gratitude.
Forever. But yeah, there is obviously like some people, it can feel like there's like a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I find it really interesting that like older queer people, their relationship to gender and like all things trans is where I feel the biggest like separation from that generation, where they're like, I don't understand non-binary, like I don't understand this. And it's like, yeah, but people didn't understand you at all. Like, don't you understand that this is, and it's not all of them, you know, but like that's where I feel like the biggest gap between us. And it feels like a lot of people who are like closer to my age are trying to explain that to like our older friends, as we're also learning from younger people. Because for sure, like I definitely feel like when I first was like introduced to the concept of being non-binary, I was probably like 23 or something. And I remember thinking like, yeah, but that's a plural pronoun. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
To go from that, and then now today I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I understand completely.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm like, I feel like maybe I'm able to give more empathy to those older people, because I'm like, I even had 1 second where I was like, what?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
No, I think it's interesting to see too. And again, like so much empathy and profound respect for our queer elders and what they've had to endure and go through.
Totally.
And it's interesting to see how like they really, I think, dug down into, specifically like lesbians, really dug down into their like female identity and like had to hang on to that label of lesbian in order to survive and find that community and hang on to each other. And then growing up when I was like in high school and stuff, I felt like lesbian was such a like intimidating word and was something that was really like used as an insult and a slur for people. And so then there were people who were like, saying queer, and then now I feel like Gen Z is coming around and like reclaiming lesbian, and then there's also people of different genders. So I think that by being able to be more specific and honest with ourselves, like we'll just be truer to our own experiences. And I think, just having grace for people as they're figuring that out, and also giving people a chance to learn, and also holding them to account when they're like
100%
being
wrong.
Stubborn as fuck.
Yeah, totally. I mean, some of those conversations are hard ones to have.
Yeah.
Like, and especially if you're not trans, trying to speak for trans people can already feel like wrong and bad. Like, I'm like, wait,
Totally.
I don't know this experience, but like, I want to stick up for these people too, and they're not in the room.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to figure out all of those things is so complicated. And then when you add intersectionality too, then you're like, and now we have another layer.
Oh, yeah. I
Another
just
layer.
watched, I guess I didn't just watch it. It's already been a year. Anyways, I recently watched Watermelon Woman on the big screen because I'm based in Toronto and they have the Queer Cinema Club. And I had never seen it. I had never watched it before, and I was really glad to see it on the big screen because I feel like if I was at home, I probably would have just been on my phone and distracted. So I was forced to watch it. And it was so relevant, where there were so many conversations happening about, like, I don't know, queer women and lesbians, and also like, the struggles that like Black lesbians face around white lesbians, and like having those conversations. Anyways, it just felt so fresh and like interesting to me, and I was so happy that I finally watched it because
I don't know this movie. You have to tell me.
Do you not know this movie?
I'm like, I feel like I need to tell you that I'm in the dark right now.
Okay, so that's my homework for you.
I can do it.
Is to watch The Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Danier. And she hasn't done a whole lot since then. It was like 96.
Okay.
But let me tell you, she was a babe in that.
Love that.
There's some sexy scenes.
Okay.
There's also lots of great conversations.
Cool.
And the fashion is just killer. Like 90s lesbians. Come on.
I mean, that's coming back, I feel. Is it like documentary, or is it drama, or is it
like a dramatic mockumentary?
Okay.
Or no, not mockumentary. I don't even know. I'm going to like not do this justice, but basically Cheryl Danier she works at a video store and she is an aspiring filmmaker. She is playing herself in it.
Okay.
And it's like a fictionalized version of like her creating this documentary where she finds out about this older movie because she works in a video store, and then she sees like the Watermelon Woman, who people suspected of being a lesbian back in the day.
Got it.
Like in silent film eras. And so she's trying to uncover all of the things, and then she uncovers like the mystery of this woman's life. And
Cool.
It is really beautiful. And so many great conversations that I feel like are still super relevant today.
Okay, that's awesome. We all have homework. If you haven't seen it, I'll be watching it. Y'all watch it.
Speaking of queer elders, that's your lesbian history.
Yeah,
homework.
totally. Oh my God, I need to watch. Speaking of fashion, do you feel like I love when I do a segue that I'm like, this is totally different now. But it does link. But
It did link. Very good.
But speaking of fashion, do you feel like you try to like incorporate Indigenous style and like fashion when you are doing like red carpets or?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to be able to uplift community wherever I can, whether that's Indigenous designers, whether that's BIPOC designers, queer designers. I think something that I've struggled with a bit is because I was really fitting into a mold growing up. Like, I performed my Rez's version of femininity so well. I was the expert at that, so much that when I did come out to my friends and family, when my best friend felt kind of hurt because she was like, I learned so much of womanhood from you, and now you're telling me all of those things are not actually of you and are a lie. Like and so I feel like we're totally good now, and and she's able to meet me where I'm at, and it's been a really beautiful progression in our friendship. But also, because I was in a place for so long where I was like wearing the tight dresses and heels and keeping my hair long but in like a really feminine way and all of it, it felt like it wasn't of me, and it always felt like such a performance. And so now I am of the mindset when I'm dressing for any event that I need to feel comfortable, and sometimes it might be feminine and sometimes it might be a little bit more masculine, but it's always for me important that I feel like myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I also feel pressure to wear Indigenous designers for the sake of wearing Indigenous designers, even if that might not fully fit with who I feel I am in terms of style or aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find the bridge right now where I'm like, first and foremost, I want to feel like myself when I'm going to an event.
Totally.
And if there's a way where I could incorporate Indigenous designers in that, I will always do it. And if I can't, then I feel a lot of guilt. I feel a lot of pressure for not doing that or not uplifting community where I can, even though maybe those designs are like hyper feminine or might not feel the way that I want to be perceived in that space. So it's just, I think that's what's so hard when there's so few people out there who are from the same community as you. Totally. I mean, Lily Gladstone, they're so fucking awesome. I know them from way back, and I loved their whole campaign with Killers of the Flower Moon, how they were wearing Indigenous jewelry and designers with every single look. And I would love to do that, but I don't know if I'm able to like marry my image of what I have for myself with that every single time.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of queer people go through a lot of like trial and error when it comes to fashion in general. We can pull some bad looks, let me tell you. And I'm talking about myself. But no, like doing that alone is tough. And then adding on a pressure that I don't know if it's a pressure you're just putting on yourself or if you also feel like people are upholding you to that or like that you want. But
I always put the most pressure on myself.
Okay, same.
For sure there'll be other people.
I'm sure you feel encouraged to do that by other people. But
definitely. And there are incredible, like, queer Indigenous designers out there who are so fucking awesome. Like, oh my God, Evan Ducharme and so many people that I could just, like, go on for days. And I don't know if everybody's out, so I just won't say who they are. But there's just so much talent out there, and I always support where I can.
Yeah. Do you feel like you feel pressure in general also like to be a role model? Like I feel like a lot of queer people feel that way. I don't know if you also, the Indigenous part of that could also affect you in that way.
I do. When I first came out publicly, not just to friends and family, but to everyone, it was after I had read a study from the Trevor Project that was saying of all LGBTQ plus youth of color, that Indigenous youth died by suicide at the highest rates.
Horrible.
And that just reaffirmed for me how I need to be out. That, like, I was in a place where I was in community, like in the queer community in Toronto, feeling a sense of safety, self-assuredness, had the support of family, friends, and loved ones. And so for me, it was important that I was open about who I am. And totally. If that meant that a kid on the res in a red state might feel seen. That was something that was like really important to me to do. And I think I'm just trying to be as honest with myself as I can, because the pressure to be a role model is very much there. And sometimes I'm going to do shit that doesn't feel like role model behavior, but it's of me. And other times, I'm not as influenced by that pressure, but for the most part I'm just trying to live my life in the way that I feel like, I don't know, integrity feels like a really important thing to me, that I'm able to look at myself in the mirror at the end of each day and be like, I am living my life.
Totally.
Not the life that was prescribed to me. Yeah,
totally. I feel like the rise of social media again has helped people kind of, especially the masses, understand that celebrities are real people or actors are real people. And maybe in general, that has kind of alleviated some of that pressure that we also are all supposed to be good people. People are realizing that that's not necessarily true all the time, and that we make mistakes, you know? So the pressure is there to be good, but also I think hopefully it feels like people are understanding that we have to give people grace to also make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah. And
or just not do what you would do. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just because I look like you and I act like you in some ways doesn't mean that everything I do will be what you would have done. I feel that this is so stupid and everyone's going to be so annoyed with me because I talk about it a lot. But I feel that way even just with my hair. The length of my hair feels...
Let's get into it.
I genuinely feel as though there are people and followers of mine who they see me, they see themselves. When I've cut my hair short, they're like, or vice versa, both ways. Like, they're like, wait, you're not me anymore, you know?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, I was never you though, by the way. Remember that.
So wild.
But I feel the pressure. And also I just like have a whole thing with my hair in general, but
I'm with you. My journey with my hair has also been a really interesting journey. And when I grew up, I had really long hair, and I mean, I still have like really long hair now, but this is the longest it's been since that point. And I wanted to chop all my hair off. And so I did. I chopped it to a pixie. I had it shaved in the back. I mean, I looked very gay, but I wasn't clued in. Anyways. And so I had to tell all these people, like, no, I'm actually not queer, but I felt really flattered that they thought I looked that way. Confusing times, really confusing times.
We've been there.
But yeah, I had really long hair. I chopped it to a pixie, and then my res turned on me. Everybody was so upset where they would come up to me and say, why would you do that? You had such beautiful hair. And when you think about Native women, you think about long Native straight hair. And for me, it felt in that time that I needed to be freed of that. And I've cut my hair for roles before. And what was funny, though, when I did chop it, this time for American Gods, and it was a much more like masculine haircut than I had, even when I had a pixie. And all of a sudden, all the attention of dudes around, like the cat calls and shit, stopped.
Gone.
Yep. They were gone. And so I was like, oh, wow. Immediately I feel, on one hand, so much more embodied and safer in myself, but on the other hand, also targeted in other ways, and then not sexualized in the same way. And then even though my hair's grown out since that point, the catcalling and all of it's gone away. I think just my energy shifted, and because that was also around the time where I was like coming into myself, and so it was just like such an interesting
That is
thing.
So interesting. I feel the same way, and also it's terrible, but there have been times where I cut my hair short and I got less attention from men, which, by the way, I'm not getting that much attention from men anyway. But like men, and not just like kind of also just like straight people in general.
Yes,
I would
like hetero normies.
Yeah, like girls, like my friends from home. Like when my hair was long, if I would do it, they'd be like, "Oh my God, Shannon, you're so pretty." And then when I cut my hair short, I felt like I could feel it, like it was taken away. Yeah, some of that, and it's sad, but like I missed it.
Totally, because that's what's deemed valuable in our society.
Totally. And it was like I was like, wait, I've been getting this one type of validation my whole life. Where the hell did it go?
And it's so interesting to like be self-assured and to feed off of your own knowledge of what you're supposed to feel like and what feels good for you versus external validation.
Totally.
And I would feed off that external validation so much growing up, so much that I had no idea what my taste was, what my voice was, what I was interested in, who I was interested in.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So you come out at 19. Was it 19?
No, that was when I
realized you might not be straight.
I was that was like the first time I had stepped into as an actor and
got it, yeah.
Like a character who I had decided for myself was queer. And those were like the first seeds of that looking back. I was 24 when I came out.
Okay.
And I came out to my siblings first, and they were all just kind of like, yeah, makes sense. Unsurprised. I feel like that's always the case with people, which was really frustrating for me.
Yeah, well, it's like, do you want it to go the other way? Because both can be
really
tough.
I mean, my mom went the other way, where the first thing out of her mouth was, but you're not a lesbian. And I was like, no, maybe not, but also that doesn't invalidate who I am and who I have feelings for right now. Like, totally. Yeah. That was a journey.
Do you feel like in your community, does it feel like it's more open-minded towards queerness? Or like did you feel like in Montreal it was more open-minded? Or did you feel in the res it was more open-minded? Or like
Montreal's definitely more open-minded in terms of queerness.
Okay.
It's a really artistic place that's focused on the arts and all of it. So obviously there's really cool-ass queer people out there. In Kahnawake, it was definitely not open to queerness. Like, I really didn't know anybody who was
like out,
femme
like,
out.
proud. Yeah.
The one person I knew was the chief in my community, one of the chiefs from the Grand Council, and I totally had a crush on her. She was like a masked lesbian, and it's weird because she's like my mom's friend, and so now I'm like, okay, never listen to this podcast. But yeah, aside from her and a lot of gay men who couldn't help who they were, I didn't know anybody. And so I think now going to my res is really different than what it was like when I was growing up. When I go back home, we had our first Pride last year, which was great that it's happening. And there's so many more out people. I mean, my cousin is trans. My youngest sibling is trans and non-binary and queer. And like, yeah, it's definitely much more open and inclusive now of our queer relatives than we've ever been. But that's also to say that there's still like way more work to happen there.
Totally. But yeah, I'm sure it's kind of just like everywhere else, you know? Like,
yeah,
we're all,
it is.
It's getting better slowly. And obviously always like a Montreal is going to be more progressive when you're in like a big city. Like
totally.
It's like New York City. Did you live in New York City?
I did.
I thought I heard you say that.
Yeah.
Did you like it there?
I loved it. It was also, they say, what do they say where they're like, you have to live in New York when you're either really young or really rich.
Yeah.
And I was really young.
Perfect.
So it was fun and chaotic, and I wound up really broke and came back, and after that moved to Toronto, and I was like, whoa, this place is the perfect combination between Toronto's the perfect combination between Montreal and New York.
Yeah.
And so I've been there ever since.
It does feel like that from my experience going there too.
And I have to say, there are so many lesbians and queer people in Toronto. I feel like it's especially like YouTubers for some reason.
Yeah.
There's like such a hub there. I don't know what's in the gay ass water, but
I know. So many lesbians also, but I also get confused sometimes when I'm in Toronto because I'm like, are you a lesbian or are you just dressed like a snowboarder? Like there's like that fashion.
There is totally the appropriation, especially even not just in Toronto, but like
everywhere.
All across the board with all these fuckboy straight dudes wearing their carabiners now and pearl necklaces and all of it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute.
We're all kind of blending together. I'm like, are we taking inspiration from you or like you taking inspiration from us?
I think it's turned into a chicken and the egg scenario,
totally.
But
all of the above.
I fully think that wearing carabiners is appropriation of lesbians for straight.
I'm like, as I have my carabiner on.
Out.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you see me. So this is a podcast about queer relationships and sex. So I do want to touch on sex, but do you think that we have like authentic queer sex scenes in most movies where there's like queer characters? Do you feel like that?
I want to say for the most part, no. Mm-hmm. I want to see, I don't know, there's way more that I want to see. I know with Backspot that we were specifically like no sex scenes because these are teenagers and we don't want to sexualize teenagers and cheerleaders, which has basically only ever been done in all of film.
Totally.
But that aside, other projects that we're working on, me and DW do talk about sex scenes and do explore them with adults, and they are much more spicy. And I want to see that. I want to see the sweet, wholesome relationships, but I also want to see like, I don't know, some kinky ass shit and like
literally
stuff where you're just like, oh my God, I like am blushing in the theater. I want to watch movies that I cannot watch with my parents sitting beside me.
I agree completely. I feel like growing up, the most I would see like sex wise with, I'll just say just for like women loving women characters, so much caressing. Just so much caressing.
It's really something.
I'm like, we're just holding hands. Why are we holding hands and having sex? Like, I feel like this doesn't look like what I know it to look like, but it does feel like did you see Love Lies Bleeding?
I have not seen Love Lies Bleeding, but I did read the script when they were casting and whatnot. Okay. So I remember it, but I didn't see it. So I didn't get the full horniness of it.
Definitely, like, you don't want to be sitting next to your parents when you watch
noted.
it. But yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I think it's just with everything, with the representation, it takes so much time.
Yeah.
But it is crazy to me that in 2024, like, I still have friends that will be like, how do you have sex? To me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what? Wait, what?
Not my lesbian friends, but, you know, like my straight friends. And like, they're like, but like, how do you have sex? And I'm like, I would love to not have to be the one who answers that question.
Also, what gets me is that, like, when straight people don't consider sex acts to be sex.
Yeah.
When they only believe that sex is, like, penetration with a penis and a vagina, like, how is, I'm sorry, but, like, how is going down on someone not sex?
No, literally. Also, what are y'all doing in bed? Is it just that? Like,
Because
I hope not.
Yeah.
But it feels
there are
like
so many other options than just that.
right? But it feels like when they ask questions like that, I'm like, I don't know if this is actually like my problem or like a straight problem. Like you guys need to
1,000% a straight problem.
you guys need to work on that.
Because we have those options that they have and then some.
I know. I know. It's just the penetration of it all. But it's also like sad that that's kind of like how we all grow up. Like,
yeah.
Because it's so heteronormative. Like, I was definitely raised like I was going to be like a little straight girl. Like, even, I feel like it's so interesting, like, thinking about consent and the way I was taught consent. It felt very like...
You were taught consent? Oh, wow.
First of all, I know. Groundbreaking, especially in Texas. But I was just taught very much so, like, you can tell boys no. You can tell men no. And it was like, very in that direction. And I've known, I mean, not to my parents' fault at all, but like, it's just something that when I have kids, if I have kids, I will be way more like aware that that might not be the only option.
Yeah.
You know? And also it's like, yeah, because like women can take advantage of women just as easily as men can take advantage of women.
Totally.
But like, I only knew the other way around.
There was have you ever read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado?
I think I've just been suggested to read it a bunch of times.
I read it last year and I was like, oh, I'm just going to read a couple chapters or whatever. And I devoured the entire thing in one sitting. And it's talking about an emotionally abusive relationship, but a queer relationship. And it was something that wasn't, like, it's never really talked about. And I feel like, I don't know, as queer people and like lesbians, that we have this tendency to idealize queer relationships and I don't know, I see so many women in my life who are with men and I'm just like, oh my god, she would be so much happier with a woman. But there is also a lot of fucked up people out there and a lot of relationships that are problematic and ones where there isn't the kind of care that should be taken or respect that's taken in relationships. So anyways, I don't know. I guess I'm coming here and like dropping my recos of watches.
I know. These are good.
All my homework.
These are good recommendations. I'm like, I need to read a book stat. I've been saying that on this podcast. I'm like, I think my brain is like rotting. Like I need to just read a fucking book.
It's so hard with, I don't know, even just being on devices. My attention span is so much more diminished.
And it's so bad.
And I will say, reading a book and watching Watermelon Woman will require attention span.
I can do this.
And you gotta...
I can do this. Buckle up, strap in. I got it. I want to do it. And also when I'm reading like queer things, I feel like, I don't know, it's crazy because you grow up and you don't read. I like could never get into the books everyone was getting into, like Twilight, like even that, because I didn't care about the romantic relationships, I realized. And then I was sneakily going to Barnes & Noble and finding gay books when I was in high school.
Oh my God.
I would like read the back of a bunch of books and like, I wouldn't even Google it at my house because I didn't want anyone, I didn't know how to work the history. So I was like, I gotta just get to Barnes & Noble and like read. That is
so adorable.
And I would have to find ones where you like couldn't tell they were gay on the front cover. Like it would be like two hands holding and I'm like, okay, I can get away with this. Especially with my dad. He would buy it. He's like, okay, yeah, great book. Got it.
So funny.
I can definitely get into a queer book more than anything else. Like,
what are your recos? What do I need to read?
Well, no, because it's embarrassing because it's literally like
it's your lesbian smut.
No, I need to get into that though. Gabby Windy was telling me she's all about like fairy smut and stuff, and I was like, okay, I guess I could do that. But no, like Evelyn Hugo, The Seven Husbands.
Oh yeah, I loved that book.
It's so good.
Maybe it didn't change my life, but I was thoroughly entertained.
Very entertained.
And then it just made me look back at like Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, and I didn't realize, but Joan Crawford was bi, and I mean also problematic figure, many mommy issues with that person, but it sounded like she had a crush on Betty Davis, and Betty Davis was being homophobic as fuck, and was just like, I am not interested, and instead I'm gonna slut shame her.
Crazy. Also, I feel like that book's about Taylor Swift.
Do you really?
Yes. I swear.
Evelyn Hugo?
Yes.
Because she's had all the...
I swear there's like inspiration.
I was on the fanfic, or like I was on the fan theories that T Swift was queer, but when she came in and was just like, I was hanging out with female friends so that people wouldn't sexualize us, and then they still sexualize us. So I was like, okay, I'm going to back off here.
Leave it. Yeah.
But she broke a lot of hearts that day and dispelled a lot of theories. But I mean, Lavender Haze.
It's just why she knows what she's doing, right?
Yes.
Like, come on.
I fully feel queer baited.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, come on. But now with Travis Kelce, I'm like, well, okay, this is not really for me anymore.
It feels really aggressively hetero.
It's so straight. I'm like, you can just do that. I'll listen to the music though.
Yeah, ew. not to shame anybody, but ew.
Ew. Yeah. Is there anything like you want to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
I'm not somebody who reads comments in my comment section of anything because there's so many trolls out there and like, I don't know, homophobic bigots and whatnot and racist people against Native folks. But one thing that I do read are letterboxd reviews of the movies that I'm in. And I found it so funny that with Backspot, the comment that we've gotten most out of any other review is everybody saying like, I want Evan Rachel Wood to yell at me like that. I want Evan Rachel Wood to be my mommy. And like everybody just going off because she is the antagonist of the movie. She is the villain. She is the really hard ass coach who turns out to be, we find out to be queer and has an ex-wife in it. And Riley really like idolizes her and whatnot. So I don't know. I feel like we've all been there. And I definitely had a crush on Evan Rachel Wood. Like, I don't know who hasn't.
Yeah, I'm like
working with her
currently. Still, it's still there.
Working with her, I had to like separate in my mind. I'm working with this person now, and she's so lovely. But I just thought it was too funny. Like the comment section on what people are saying about Evan, I'm just like, I blush reading.
Oh my god, it's like the comments that are like, oh, I want her to step on my neck. I'm like, I do not. What happened to us?
You know. People are into what they're into.
I know.
I'm not here to kink shame.
No shame here. But yeah, people.
Maybe not for me personally, but.
Okay, well, you guys should definitely. You guys should definitely check out Backspot. I've watched the movie twice. How many times have you watched it?
Since I'm a producer on it, I have watched it over 10 times at least.
Wow.
If not close to like 25. So I've seen it a lot, but yeah, it's available. It's available to buy on Apple and Amazon, iTunes, all of the places, and we're hoping to lock in a streaming deal soon.
Oh my god, amazing. And it was produced by Elliot Page, too.
Yeah.
Did we mention that? I don't know if I did.
Produced by Elliot Page and has like a majorly queer creative team as producers, director, creatives.
It's fucking awesome. And I'll have you know that I did play a cheerleading coach in Zolita's music video.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Can you, like, play that at the end of this video?
Yeah, I'll put it in for y'all if you don't remember. Although I'm in all pink. It's horrible. Also, well, it's not horrible. The video is amazing. I'm just, like, embarrassed
you don't like your
of
part.
myself. Yeah. But it's actually so wild that y'all started making that movie and then Cheer came out. And Evan Rachel Wood's character does feel kind of similar to that coach vibe-wise.
A little bit. I will say that in Cheer, I mean, I know there's like editing and everything involved, but I feel like there's definitely similar themes because the way that people treat female coaches is really different than they'll treat male coaches. And there's a monologue that Evan gives in the movie where she's saying like, if I was like Bill Belichick, you wouldn't treat me like your mom. Totally. And like, people view her that she's supposed to be maternal, that she's supposed to be all these things for these people, but she's a coach who has a job, and it's like to get people to win. And I think it was important for us to not have like an antagonist who was like a mustache twirlingly evil villain. Like we wanted somebody who we could relate to, who were like, oh, this person's clearly going through a lot of shit and has probably faced a lot of homophobia for being an out queer woman in the cheerleading space.
Totally.
And so for us, that was really important to dive into that. But yeah, she was awesome in that.
Cheerleading is like a sport, but I've known that forever because I'm from Dallas. It's like
you're in the heart of
literally
cheer territory.
I grew up watching those girls do all that stuff all the time, and I was like, this is fucking crazy. Like,
it is crazy.
It's really, really mega in Texas. So yeah, that was not news to me, but I didn't realize it was news to so much of the world.
It really is.
When Cheer came out. And then also now Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders coming out. Liked that show for other reasons, but...
Yep.
Okay. Okay, you guys, I'll have all of Devery's information in the bio below where you can watch the movie, all of your social handles, and is there anything that they should look out for coming out soon? Just the streaming?
Yeah, just the streaming right now. I'm working on stuff more behind the scenes for the next little bit, doing developing stuff. But yeah, check out Backspot.
Cool. Thank you so much. This was
Thank
so
you.
fun.